Good week, everyone. This is my presentation discussing some themes highlighting the similarities and differences between the Department of Education, or the DOE, versus Marcus by Goldman Sachs, which I will refer to as Goldman Sachs going forward. They both offer loans to the public. The DOE offers student loans. Goldman Sachs offers personal loans. They both have high volume call centers designed to assist their clientele. So my thesis is that although both entities are similar in various ways, the inherent traits of bureaucratic institutions is shown to be better for the public, but not necessarily for the individual. And we'll get more in depth on why that is by discussing the differences and similarities in organizational structure, response to economic changes, efficiency, performing, and planning approaches, and how both entities balance the consumer experience and public interest. So theme one is organizational structure, response to economic conditions. Both are similar in that they have adopted a hierarchy and have power relegated to roles rather than people. That idea comes from Weber. The difference is how these structures respond to economic conditions. So public spending goes up during economic downturns so that the DOE is going to expand its activities, which is good for the public. However, it's going to increase the tax burden on the individual. Now, private spending goes down along with the economic downturn so that it's not necessarily good for the public in that they cannot receive increased access to credit. However, it's good for the individual in that it lessens the risk spread out across the community. Now, bureaus tend to exist forever. This was mentioned by Downs, in that, say, one of the presidential candidates who was talking about eliminating all student loan debt, they implement that plan, the DOE will probably find a way to exist in some other capacity and take on some other activities. Whereas if all personal debt was eliminated and people decided they don't want to take on any more loans, Goldman Sachs will probably go away. So that actually serves the public well, in that the public does not need Goldman Sachs anymore, therefore it goes away, saving them resources, and they could better allocate those resources elsewhere. Where if the DOE continues to exist, even though its existence is no longer justified, it could be good for the individual in that they can still have access to student loans and get more credit, but it is not the best way to allocate resources. Theme two is efficiency, performance, and planning. Both entities are pursuing high efficiency, high performance. They want their money. To do that and deal with the high volume of callers they're getting, they have time and motion studies done. They adopt scientific management espoused by Taylor, and that their employees in the call centers have headsets on, thus reducing the amount of time that the employees have to reach over, pick up the phone. They have scripts so that people don't have to improvise. They have a set script to read that takes X amount of seconds. Therefore, they can complete a call within 7 minutes. At the DOE, they must complete calls within 7 minutes on average. That's an example of adopting scientific management. Also, Gulick brought up PosCorp. Allison pointed out that wherever you look, PosCorp is adopted in both public and private entities, and the same is true for the Department of Education and Goldman Sachs. They both have planning, organizational activities, and strategy making. Now, the difference is that Wilson's dichotomy points out the political pressures affects how planning and organization takes place at the DOE. Okay, so you have a new executive power, you're going to have a new appointment at the top of the Department of Education. It's going to affect the future planning. It's also going to affect what they want to accomplish right now while that president is in power. Whereas if you're looking at Goldman Sachs, they don't have such political pressures, so therefore they don't have to take such drastic changes in the short term. They can do more long-term planning. Also, the role of the press and the media, they're going to be looking at the public sector activities. DOE's activities are more visible thanks to the Freedom of Information Act, states such as California adopting Public Records Act. So the press can get more involved, whereas Goldman Sachs, they keep their activities under wraps and hidden from those pressures, and that affects their performance in that they could just do what they need to do to get the desired results, whereas the Department of Education must answer to the public and be aware that their activities, whether they're very efficient, they could be subject to public scrutiny. Also, Merton points out that investment in training for performance is lacking in the public sector. So employees join a bureaucracy and they get trained, and then 20 years down the line, they haven't been trained that much. And their experience is based on the last 20 years. Whereas in the private sector, especially in the financial industry, Goldman Sachs employees are going to undergo ongoing training and staying on the up and up of new trends and breakthroughs in the industry. Which leads us to theme number 3, which is the consumer experience balanced with public interest. So they're both similar in that they're owned by the public. Department of Education is owned by taxpayers, so to speak, and Goldman Sachs is owned by public investors. Now you're looking at the difference between political capital and market share. And that is discussed by Allison, where he talks about the role of the press and the media. The media could scrutinize the Department of Education for how they handle taxpayers' money, whereas the press could also scrutinize Goldman Sachs for, causing problems such as the Great Recession down in 2008 because of shady financial activities. Now, the difference is, going back to what Merton talked about, training the effect on the consumer experience. Now, you call in, you're going to get a highly trained professional at Goldman Sachs speaking to you who is knowledgeable about all current activities. Whereas in the public sector, the Department of Education, they may have not updated their training programs lately because there is pressure to keep certain investments in training down. That's a possibility. Now, you also have the public desire for equity, but it also creates rigidity. And Merton gets into that, how bureaucracies must abide by the rules to a fault. And the same could be said of the Department of Education. They must treat everyone alike. They cannot deviate. They cannot make special cases. And that could lead to an impersonal consumer experience. And I believe Pendleton Harry talks about that. And then, whereas at Goldman Sachs, they can make everything personalized, they can get data on every consumer and really tailor their response to them. That's also a possibility. And now we're looking at trying to serve everyone versus selective clientele, making unilateral decisions. Pendleton Harry talks about that and how government agencies must serve the public. They have to serve everyone. They have to organize the activities as such. And because you have to serve everyone, you're not going to serve anyone well. Whereas, like I said, at Goldman Sachs, they could choose their clientele. They could even fire problematic customers and analyze certain customers who are not worth their time and money, and they could fire their customers. So it could be a more tailored experience to each consumer. Whereas the Department of Education, you're going to get a one-size-fits-all approach. If you made it this far, I congratulate you and I thank you for listening. I look forward to hearing your presentations. Take care.